When the Homeowners Association requested a key to my private lakefront gate for community access, I had no clue what it would reveal. Years of corruption, embezzlement, and criminal behavior soon surfaced, shaking our entire neighborhood to its core. The journey toward justice all began with a simple padlock. I still vividly recall the exact moment when my calm life at Cedar Lake turned into a nightmare. It was a bright Tuesday afternoon when the doorbell rang, interrupting my work-from-home routine. I wasn't expecting anyone, but through the peephole, I saw Jessica Wilson, the Maple Springs HOA president, standing on my porch with her arms crossed. Her signature pearl necklace shone in the sunlight as she impatiently tapped her foot. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door and said, "Hello, Jessica. What brings you here today?" Trying to sound polite, despite our strained past, she wasted no time on greetings and declared, "The board held an emergency meeting last night about your new gate. You have blocked the lake access path that everyone has used for decades." I blinked, genuinely puzzled. "That path is on my property. I checked the deed when I bought this house last year." Jessica's smile was unapologetic. "That is exactly why I am here. The board voted unanimously. You must provide us with a key to your gate immediately. Homeowners are upset that they have to walk an extra 10 minutes around to reach the lake." A wave of unease tightened my stomach. I put up that gate after finding beer cans and garbage on my property for 3 weekends straight. People had been treating my yard as if it were a public park. "Jessica, I'm sorry, but I checked with the county, and the property maps clearly indicate that path is private. It belongs to me. It is not a community shortcut." Her face turned bright red. "That path has been used by residents since before you were born. There is such a thing as established use, you know." "Actually," I responded, "I spoke with my lawyer before installing the gate. There is no easement on my deed, and putting up no trespassing signs for the last 6 months prevents any claim of established use." Jessica's eyes narrowed sharply. "The HOA bylaws state that all homeowners must maintain community aesthetics and access. Your gate violates Section 7. Section 7 concerns community property," I replied, thankful that I had read the entire boring document when I moved in. "My land is not community property." Jessica stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Listen carefully. The board knows how to make things very uncomfortable for difficult homeowners. Last year, David Thompson fought us over his fence height. He ended up with $122,000 in fines and a lien on his house. Just give us the key, and this will all go away." A chill ran down my spine. Was she threatening me? "I think we're done here, Jessica. If the HOA wants to discuss this further, you can contact my attorney." I handed her my lawyer's business card and softly closed the conversation. She slammed the door while angrily shouting through the window. I watched as she hurried down my front walkway, her phone already pressed to her ear. Immediately, I contacted my lawyer and detailed the situation, making sure to document everything. He advised me that if they continued to push, we would need solid proof. That night, I struggled to fall asleep. Around 11:30, my phone buzzed with a security alert. I grabbed it and froze. The app displayed 3 people near my back gate. I recognized Jessica's unmistakable blonde bob, along with Robert Davis, the HOA treasurer, and Michael Thompson, the facilities manager. Robert was holding an object that gleamed in the security light. Could that be a bolt cutter? I hit record on the app and dialed the police. I told the dispatcher, my voice trembling, "There are people trying to break into my property." By the time I threw on some clothes and rushed downstairs, my doorbell rang again. A police officer stood there, flashlight in hand. "I'm Officer James," he said. "We received a call about trespassers." I showed him the security footage, still recording. "Those are the HOA board members attempting to break my lock." Officer James frowned and suggested we check it out. We walked around to my back gate. No one was present, but the padlock showed deep scratch marks. The officer's flashlight revealed footprints in the soft earth. "I'll have to file a report," he said. "This is attempted breaking and entering." As he wrote the report, headlights illuminated my driveway. A silver SUV parked, and Jessica stepped out with Robert and the officer. "Thank goodness you are here," Jessica called out sweetly. "We were just inspecting community property that this homeowner has illegally fenced off." Officer James glanced between us. "Ma'am, according to county records, this is private property. You were caught trying to damage a lock on private property outside permitted hours." Jessica's expression turned stern. "This is a matter for the HOA, not the police." "Bylaws do not override state law, ma'am," Officer James interrupted. "I recommend you consult your HOA attorney before taking any further steps that might be seen as criminal trespassing or vandalism." After they left, Officer James turned to me. "Keep that camera rolling. If they come back, call us right away." I hardly slept that night. The next morning, my inbox was flooded with 5 separate HOA violation notices: hedge height, mailbox color, unapproved garden border, excessive water use, and unauthorized security modifications. Each violation came with a $100 daily fine. The battle lines were clearly drawn. I had no idea how intense this would become, or that my simple gate would uncover secrets capable of shaking our entire community to its foundation. At 6:30 a.m., my phone would not stop buzzing. Text messages poured in from neighbors I barely knew. "Did you see what they posted about you? Are you really blocking lake access? The emergency meeting tonight is about your property." I rubbed my sleepy eyes and opened the Maple Springs Community app. There it was, a special announcement from Jessica. Urgent, homeowner blocking. "There is an urgent meeting about historic lake access tonight at 7 p.m. in the clubhouse. Every homeowner is required to attend." Below was a photo of my gate, accompanied by a caption accusing me of harming community value and privatizing access that countless generations have enjoyed. My hands trembled with anger. The post already had 47 comments, mostly from strangers calling me selfish and urging the HOA to take action. I contacted my lawyer, Mark Simmons, while making coffee. I told him they are turning the neighborhood against me and said these violation notices are clear retaliation. Mark advised, "Take pictures of your property and document everything. Nothing here breaks the actual code." "I will prepare a cease and desist letter today. Meanwhile, obtain a copy of your property survey from the county records." I took a day off work and went to the county clerk's office. The woman at the counter looked up when I mentioned the Maple Springs HOA matter. She asked knowingly, and I nodded in surprise. Quietly, she said, "You are not the first. The HOA has been trying for years to claim private lakefront properties as community access. They even attempted to change the county zoning maps back in 2018. My jaw dropped. "They did what?" I asked. She said it was rejected, but they keep trying. She printed my property records and handed them over. "Here is your deed, survey, and tax history. See this line? It clearly shows your property reaches the lake shore with no easements or right-of-way noted." Holding these official documents, I finally felt stronger. Confidently, I spent the afternoon capturing dated photos of my perfectly compliant property features and then recording a walkthrough of the path to demonstrate it was within my property boundaries. At 4:30 in the afternoon, I returned from grocery shopping to discover my gate lock had been destroyed. A shiny new padlock replaced mine, with a note taped nearby that read, "Community access restored. Contact HOA office for your key." I stood there stunned, grocery bags dangling from my hands. They had actually damaged my property in broad daylight. I immediately called the police. Officer Reynolds arrived, but this time he was a different officer than the one from the previous night. He took photographs of the broken lock, the replacement padlock, and the note. "This is vandalism and criminal trespassing," he confirmed. "Would you like to press charges?" Without a second thought, I said yes, and added, "I also want a restraining order against the board members." While Officer Reynolds completed his report, my elderly neighbor Grace Mitchell slowly walked down the path from her neighboring property. Her face appeared worried beneath her gardening hat. She whispered, "I saw them, Jessica, Robert, and the handyman they hired. They used bolt cutters around noon. I have it recorded on my birdwatching camera." I could have hugged her. "Grace, would you be willing to tell the officer what you saw?" She nodded firmly and said, "I am tired of their bullying. They threatened to find me last month because my bird bath was an unapproved water feature. I have had that bird bath for 23 years. Grace's testimony will be invaluable. The video footage and recordings greatly strengthened my argument. Officer Reynolds assured me he would follow up with the HOA board members. We need to question them today," he said. "Damaging private property is a serious crime." As the police vehicle drove away, my phone rang from an unknown number. "This is Robert Davis," the tense voice of the HOA treasurer said. "You have made a grave error involving the police. We are willing to overlook the gate issue if you drop the charges immediately." "You destroyed my property," I responded. "That is a crime, not just an HOA violation. Listen carefully." Robert's voice lowered. "Jessica knows people at your workplace. Your manager plays golf with her husband every Sunday. Consider what is more important, a foolish gate or your career." The threat lingered between us. I ended the call without replying, my hands trembling once more, but this time with fury instead of fear. I drove to the hardware store, bought the strongest lock available, and replaced the HOA's padlock with mine. Then I installed new security cameras from various angles and put up a laminated sign stating private property, all trespassers will be prosecuted, area under 24-hour video surveillance. By 6:45 p.m., cars began to fill the clubhouse parking lot for the emergency meeting. I arrived with Mark, my attorney, carrying folders full of evidence. The room went quiet as we entered. Jessica stood at the podium, microphone in hand, her expression serious. Her expression shifted rapidly between shock and anger. She declared firmly, "This meeting is for homeowners only outside. Guests are not permitted." Mark stepped forward, announcing he was there on behalf of his client, who is a homeowner and fully entitled to attend with legal counsel. Murmurs spread among the attendees, many of whom appeared puzzled. Mark pressed on, stating this gathering breaches your own bylaws, which mandate a fortnight's notice for any official HOA meetings. Any decisions made at this event would therefore be invalid and subject to challenge. Jessica's fingers gripped the microphone tightly as she responded that the meeting was merely an informational session regarding community access when suddenly a sharp knock came at the door. Officer Reynolds entered accompanied by two fellow officers along with Jessica Wilson, Robert Davis, and Michael Thompson. Officer Reynolds addressed the room, explaining they needed to discuss a reported incident of property damage earlier in the day. The atmosphere instantly became chaotic, with residents yelling questions. Someone nearby whispered aloud, "We were never informed that path was private property." As the police led the board members outside, Grace quietly handed me a folded note. Upon opening it, I saw it instructed me to review the HOA financial reports. Grace's uneven handwriting noted that last year $5,000 was allocated for lake access in line item 4, but no maintenance had been completed. I met Grace's somber gaze, and at that moment I understood this issue went far beyond my gate. There was a deeper secret behind that locked entrance. Just then my phone buzzed at 6:30 in the morning. It was Grace, my elderly neighbor who lived 3 doors down, whispering, "They are outside your house, Jessica, and the entire HOA board with them. They look upset." I peeked through my blinds and saw 5 people dressed in business casual standing together on my driveway, blocking my car. Jessica stood at the forefront with her arms crossed, tapping her foot impatiently. "Thanks for the warning, Grace," I said, my stomach twisting anxiously. I needed to get to work, but facing this confrontation was inevitable. I grabbed my phone, opened the recording app, and hit record. A feeling told me I would need proof of what was about to happen. Taking a deep breath, I stepped outside into the cool morning air. "Good morning," I said calmly, though my heart pounded. "Is there a reason you are all blocking my driveway?" Jessica moved forward, her flawless blonde bob not swaying despite the breeze. "Remove that police report immediately," she demanded in a low and menacing voice. "The board has unanimously decided that your actions are hostile to the community's interests." "What does that mean?" asked Robert, the treasurer with round glasses that could not hide his cold stare. "It means we are giving you one chance to be reasonable before things get unpleasant." I held my phone up openly so they could see the recording was on. "Are you threatening me? Because that is exactly what it sounds like." "We are protecting the community's interests," Robert replied, adjusting his tie. "That path has been used for 20 years. It is a tradition, not a legal right," I responded firmly. "The property survey clearly indicates that no one cares about your concerns anymore." Jessica snapped, stepping closer. "Do you realize who I am in this community? My husband plays golf with the mayor, and I head 3 charity committees." The others nodded seriously, as if her social standing somehow altered property laws. "That's impressive," I responded calmly, "but it does not give you permission to trespass on my land or change the locks." A red-faced man I recognized as Doug, the head of the landscaping committee, pointed his finger at me. "You are making powerful enemies here. Think about what that means for your future in Maple Springs." I said, "I am going to be late for work, walking toward my car. Please move aside." They hesitated but stepped away. Jessica was not finished. She handed me an official-looking envelope. "Special assessment. The board voted last night. Your property needs extra security measures because of your issues. $500 is due by Friday." I took the envelope without looking inside. "My lawyer will examine this. Now, if you will excuse me." As I drove off, I saw them in my rearview mirror, huddled and whispering. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. This was no longer about a gate. At work, I could barely concentrate during lunch. I called my lawyer and sent him the recording. Then I contacted Officer Reynolds to inform him about the situation. They cannot impose special assessments targeting individual homeowners. My lawyer explained that it is discriminatory. The enforcement team keeps recording everything. I was just wrapping up a project when my phone lit up with messages, 12 texts from neighbors, all saying the same thing. "There is an emergency HOA meeting tonight at 7 p.m. The strange part was that I had not received any notification, even though I am a homeowner. Grace called me, her voice shaking. She said she had just returned from her doctor's appointment and noticed signs all over the neighborhood about this emergency meeting. When I called Jessica to ask what it was about, she told me it was only for homeowners in good standing. A chill ran down my spine. "What are they planning?" Grace whispered that she did not know, but Nate from down the street said they are voting on something major. He had overheard Jessica on the phone saying they needed to make an example. Then came the shocker. "They are voting to place a lien on your house," Grace exclaimed, her voice breaking. "Mary from the book club said that Jessica told everyone I had accumulated $155,000 in violations. My legs nearly gave out. $115,000? That is impossible. They are saying I have had violations going back 3 years that were never addressed. Grace went on, explaining that they have paperwork showing warning letters which they claim were sent. I never received any warnings until last week, I said, my mouth dry with fear. I know, dear, it is all fabricated, Mary said. She couldn't believe it either, but Jessica had impressive charts and graphs showing a history of non-compliance. I glanced at the clock. It was 5:30 p.m. The meeting began at 7 o'clock. I had just enough time. Grace, thank you. Could you do me one more favor and attend that meeting, then text me what happens? Of course, dear. What are you going to do? I grabbed my keys. I am bringing backup. First, I contacted Officer Reynolds and explained the situation. Then, I called my lawyer, who agreed to meet me at the community center immediately. I stopped at home only long enough to grab the folder with all my property documents, surveys, and security footage showing the board members breaking my lock. When I arrived at the community center parking lot at 6:55 p.m., I noticed almost every space was occupied. They had gathered the entire neighborhood against me. For a moment I sat in my car, my heart pounding. I had never faced a battle like this. I was neither wealthy nor influential like Jessica. I did not have connections or power. All I possessed was the truth and the law on my side. Would that be sufficient? My phone vibrated with a message from Grace. They are saying awful things about you. Jessica is showing pictures of your gate and calling it hostile architecture. Robert is speaking about community property values falling. People are getting agitated. Come quickly. I stepped out of my car just as my lawyer arrived. Behind him was Officer Reynolds in his patrol car, lights off but clearly there, ready. My lawyer asked, briefcase in hand. I took a deep breath and nodded. Let's go. Let me set things straight. The community center fell completely silent as we entered. More than 50 neighbors sat on folding chairs, all turning their attention to us. Jessica was standing at the front next to a projector screen displaying a close-up image of my gate, marked with angry red circles. Her smile immediately disappeared when she saw my lawyer. "This is a private meeting," she declared loudly, "for homeowners only." "Perfect," I replied, my voice firmer than I felt. "I am a homeowner, and these gentlemen are my guests." Officer Reynolds gave a polite nod to the crowd. Some people shifted uneasily in their seats, while my lawyer stepped forward. "Before proceeding," he said, "I must inform everyone that this meeting violates your own HOA bylaws, which require at least 2 weeks' notice for any official vote." Robert quickly approached Jessica, whispering urgently in her ear. Her face turned red. "This is an emergency session," she insisted. "Special circumstances apply." "Mercy," I asked, scanning the room, "the gate has been there for months. So what is the emergency? That the police are investigating criminal property damage by board members?" Murmurs spread through the audience as confusion showed on many faces. My lawyer cleared his throat. "Furthermore, I have documented proof of harassment, vandalism, fraudulent violations, and discriminatory enforcement aimed specifically at my client." Jessica slammed a gavel I hadn't noticed before. "This is out of order. We are here to talk about community access to the lake path, which has always been—" "The land was private property," I declared firmly, holding up the surveys and ownership documents as proof. A man from the back row stood and said, "Jessica, you told us this path belonged to the community 20 years ago." Jessica's eyes shifted nervously around the room. "Well, there has been a traditional easement," she responded. "No easement is recorded in the county's official documents," my attorney interrupted firmly. "We conducted a thorough check." Officer Reynolds chose this moment to step up. His calm and commanding voice quieted everyone immediately. I am currently looking into a case of criminal trespassing and vandalism at the gate of this property. We have security recordings and physical proof." He held up a clear plastic bag containing shards of my original broken lock. "We also have fingerprints," he added simply. The room exploded in shock. Neighbors whispered to each other in disbelief. A woman near the front stood angrily and shouted at Jessica, "You claimed this owner was damaging community property. You never mentioned that this was private land before." Jessica pounded her gavel, desperately trying to restore order. "We need order," she insisted, but the meeting was quickly falling apart. My neighbor Thomas, a quiet accountant I hardly knew, came up to me looking concerned. "Is it true they broke into your property?" he asked. I nodded and showed him the security video on my phone. His eyes grew wide. "They told everyone you were trying to block access to the lake, which had been community land for generations," he said. "They even added $50 to our—" Last year, when the quarterly fees for the lake path upkeep were charged, something finally registered in my mind. Wait a minute, they have been billing everyone for the upkeep of my private land. Thomas nodded solemnly and confirmed they had even increased the fee this year. My lawyer happened to overhear this and quietly mentioned that this situation might amount to fraud. Meanwhile, Grace was speaking energetically to a group of elderly neighbors, occasionally glancing in my direction. I noticed heads nodding supportively. Jessica, realizing she was losing control, switched tactics. She shouted over the noise that this is exactly what happens when outsiders move into established neighborhoods. They don't respect our customs. The room grew quieter as eyes turned toward me. This was a desperate bid to exploit the community's fear of change. I took a steady breath and spoke clearly for all to hear. "I am not an outsider trying to disrupt anything. I am a homeowner defending my legal property rights, and I have discovered that your board has been charging everyone for access and maintenance of land they do not own." Robert jumped up shouting that I was lying, but he cut himself off, looking to Jessica for support. "We have paperwork," Jessica added weakly. Several voices demanded to see it. Officer Reynolds stepped forward and said he would also be very interested in reviewing that documentation, since it could be important for their investigation. Jessica's face went pale, and she declared, "This meeting is over," gathering her papers in a rush. But by then, the harm had already been done. Neighbors began coming up to me in small clusters, asking questions and sharing their own experiences with the board. They fined me $200 for putting my trash bin out 12 hours early while my daughter was in the hospital. One woman tearfully told me they had denied her fence permit 3 times, then approved the exact same design once she hired Jessica's brother's company to build it. As the crowd started to thin, Thomas approached me again, looking serious. "I am an accountant," he said quietly, "and I have always been curious about the HOA's finances. They haven't released detailed statements for years, only summaries. If they have been charging fees for path maintenance on private property, then where has that money actually gone?" When he finished, he nodded solemnly. "Exactly," I thought. My lawyer overheard this and pulled me aside. He suggested we file a discovery request for all HOA financial documents. If there is financial wrongdoing on top of everything else, this could be far beyond just a dispute over a gate. Officer Reynolds joined our small group. "I have collected statements from several witnesses who saw board members tampering with your property," he said. "We have enough evidence to move forward with charges if you want to pursue them." I glanced around the room. Jessica and the other board members had vanished, but most of my neighbors were still there, chatting quietly in groups. As people glanced in my direction, I realized this issue was no longer just about my gate. It had become about a whole community that had been manipulated and deceived. I made up my mind and said I wanted to press charges and review all the financial records. As we left the community center, Grace quickly came to walk beside me. "You were amazing," she said, patting my arm. "So brave." I thanked her for the warning, admitting I could not have done it without her. She smiled slyly and said, "I'm not finished yet. I've been taking notes on every board meeting for the last 5 years, recording every inconsistency and odd decision. I never imagined I would get a chance to use them." I looked at her with new admiration. "Grace, would you be willing to share those notes with my lawyer?" Her eyes sparkled. "I thought you would never ask." Driving home that night, I felt something unexpected, a strong sense of purpose. This struggle was no longer just mine. It was for Grace, for Thomas, and for every neighbor who had been bullied and misled. The fight over my gate had revealed something far darker hidden within our peaceful community. Now, with allies by my side, I was determined to expose it all. What would tomorrow bring? Sitting quietly at the back of the courtroom, I watched Jessica nervously fidget as my lawyer spread out documents on the table. What began as a simple gate dispute was about to uncover something much bigger. "Your Honor," my lawyer began during the hearing, "during discovery, we uncovered alarming financial discrepancies that are directly linked to this case." Jessica's attorney immediately objected, saying that this concerns a property boundary issue, not financial matters. The judge glanced over his glasses and decided to permit it, stating that these documents had been appropriately submitted during discovery. My heart raced as my lawyer switched to the first slide, which displayed a glossy HOA pamphlet featuring a photo of my lakefront trail marked as Community Lake Access. I had never seen this brochure before, even though it had been around for 7 years. My lawyer clarified that the HOA has been promoting my client's private land as a shared community benefit. They had raised the dues 3 times, citing the upkeep expenses for this trail. A murmur spread among the neighbors gathered to watch. Grace, my elderly neighbor, gasped loudly. Furthermore, my lawyer revealed that we found payments totaling $127,000 sent to a company named Lakeside Maintenance, LLC. This firm has no employees, no website, and does not hold a business license, but its bank statements showed transfers to Jessica's personal account. Jessica's face went pale as her attorney whispered urgently in her ear. Robert, the HOA treasurer, slumped tiredly in his chair. During the break, neighbors gathered around me. "Our dues were increased by $200 last year for that trail." Thomas said, his expression filled with frustration that he had to take on an extra shift each month to cover it. Grace reached for my arm, eyes brimming with tears, saying that when her husband passed, she fell behind on payments, and that Jessica had threatened to foreclose on her. The house priced over $340,000. "Now I understand why they were desperate for the money," Detective Wilson said, approaching with a bulky folder. "We have been looking into the HOA board for 3 months due to discrepancies in tax records. Your case just provided the final clues we needed when court reconvened." Jessica's attorney asked for a private discussion with the judge. 20 minutes later, the judge came back. "With new evidence, the district attorney is pressing criminal charges against Jessica Lewis, Robert Thompson, and Diane Miller for embezzlement, fraud, and criminal conspiracy. Court officials will now detain them." As Jessica was taken away in handcuffs, she caught my gaze and snarled, "This is not the end." The same evening, news vans filled our street and my phone kept ringing nonstop. The story had gone viral. A minor gate conflict revealed years of corruption. A court-appointed administrator called an urgent HOA meeting the next week. The community center was overflowing. People stood against the walls, their expressions filled with a mix of fury and shock. The administrator detailed the entire extent of the fraud. Besides the property tax issue, the board had fabricated 6 bogus vendor companies to bill for work that was never done. They had drained money from the reserve fund and even received kickbacks from the genuine landscaping company. "What will happen now?" someone shouted. "First, we will elect a new board. Then, a comprehensive audit will be conducted to determine if the funds can be recovered. Finally, all violation notices from the last 3 years will be reviewed. Since many seemed to be acts of revenge or deceit, my neighbor Thomas stood up and said, 'I suggest we put forward Grace for the new board.' She had challenged their spending last year and they almost destroyed her." Grace blushed as the audience applauded. "I will do it if someone helps me understand the financial details." "I am an accountant," said a man I had never met before. "I will assist." As the meeting went on, I slipped outside to get some fresh air. Detective Wilson followed me and quietly said, "You should know we discovered a journal in Jessica's home office. It contained a list of troublesome homeowners along with schemes to force them out. Your name was at the very top with notes about catching you on violations until you were forced to sell." I shivered despite the warm evening and asked why me, since I barely knew her prior to the gate dispute. "Your property is the largest on the lake according to her notes, and she has a friend who is a developer. They had plans." From inside I heard cheers. Looking through the window, I saw Grace standing at the podium, her slender shoulders held straight with newfound confidence. The detective handed me a business card. "The district attorney will contact you tomorrow. This case runs deeper than anyone expected. People in powerful positions were involved. Are you ready for that?" I thought of Grace nearly losing her home, Thomas working extra hours, and the many neighbors who had been bullied and cheated. "Yes," I said quietly, watching the sunset glisten off the lake that had sparked everything. "Some gates must remain closed, but the truth about that gate." 6 months had flown by in a whirlwind of depositions, interviews, and court appearances. I never imagined I would become the focal point of a case that grabbed national headlines, yet here I was, sitting in the district attorney's office, going over my testimony one last time. "You've been incredibly helpful," said M. Rodriguez, the lead prosecutor. "Your thorough records transformed this from a straightforward fraud case into something far larger." I nodded, recalling my grandfather's advice about always keeping things in writing. I never thought that my habit of saving emails would uncover corruption within the city council. She gave a grim smile. "The link between Jessica, Councilman Walsh, and Walsh Development Company would have remained hidden if you had not challenged that gate." Outside, spring had sprung at Maple Springs community. Fresh flowers lined the paths. New playground equipment shone in the common area, and the community center sported a fresh coat of paint. As I walked home, neighbors waved and called out greetings. The same people who had avoided any contact a year ago now stopped to chat. Thomas jogged over from his yard. "Did you hear? The recovery company has located another account. We are getting back nearly 60% of the stolen funds." "That's incredible." "What will the new board do with it?" I asked. Thomas grinned. Grace suggested creating real community lake access on the north side. "It will be better than your old path, no offense." "None taken," I laughed as I reached home. I came across an official letter from the court announcing that the restitution hearing had been arranged. Jessica, Robert, and Diane had all accepted plea agreements, avoiding prison but agreeing to extensive community service and repayment plans. Suddenly, my doorbell rang. Grace was standing there holding a folder and a basket of muffins to prepare for the board meeting. She explained everything, setting the muffins down. "I never really thanked you properly for what you did. You're the one who took the lead," she said, shaking her head, "for showing me that standing up for what is right really matters. I had been terrified of them for years, simply paying whatever they demanded. Now I am helping to manage things." We spread the documents across my kitchen table. The new board had created clear and fair procedures. Violations now required photographic proof and had to be reviewed by the board. Financial reports were posted every month. Every vendor contract was reopened. "How is your gate doing?" Grace asked with a sparkle in her eye. "Wonderful, quiet, boring, just the way a gate should be." Later that afternoon, as Grace left, I noticed a moving truck at Jessica's former home. Her family had moved away after the scandal broke. A young couple with 2 kids were coordinating the movers. The little girl saw me and waved excitedly. Despite everything, I felt hopeful for the new arrivals. That evening, I went to the monthly HOA meeting, something I had avoided for years. The community center was filled with lively conversation as Grace called the meeting to order. The first topic was the lake. Construction on the access project is set to start next month, and we are actually under budget thanks to Thomas. During the meeting, as Thomas unveiled the blueprints, he received applause from everyone. The new access point will feature a fishing dock, a picnic area, and a kayak launch, which is far superior to the narrow path I once had. After the meeting ended, I stayed behind, observing neighbors as they chatted in small groups. Detective Wilson suddenly appeared next to me and said, "I thought you might want to know that Councilman Walsh resigned today. The investigation into the development kickbacks is now expanding to include 3 other council members." "Will it ever stop?" I asked, astonished at how widespread the impact had become. He shrugged and replied, "Corruption is like a weed. You pull up one and find 10 more underneath. But in this neighborhood, you folks uprooted the entire system." As we walked toward the parking lot, he added, "By the way, the FBI's Public Corruption Unit has some questions for you about the county zoning officials. Would you be willing to talk to them?" I hesitated, recalling the months filled with stress, threatening letters, and vandalism against my home. Despite it all, I finally said, "Yes, some battles are worth fighting." At home, I walked down to my path by the lake and unlocked the gate. The water shimmered under the moonlight. A year ago, I fought for this strip of land on principle, but now I realized it was never truly about the gate. My phone then buzzed with a text from Grace. "Board approved your garden expansion unanimously. Congratulations." I smiled, recalling how carefully I had submitted everything. The form contained all the necessary diagrams, and the system was presented during the meeting. It was functioning exactly as expected. From across the lake, the sound of laughter drifted over from a neighborhood barbecue taking place at the community park. Next year, they would have their own lake access to enjoy. I locked my gate and made my way back to the house, stopping briefly to check my mailbox. Inside, there was an envelope addressed by hand. I opened it and found a thank you card signed by dozens of neighbors. "Some people close gates," it read, "while others open doors for an entire community. Thank you for being the second kind."